This morning on NBC5 In Depth, multiple bills will now become law in Vermont after a quick and robust veto session. We recap what these new laws mean for Vermont homeowners with reaction from Governor Phil Scott and top Democrats. And counting down the days till the New York primary, we're catching up with the candidates on the ballot to make sure you're better informed before you cast your vote. Plus, celebrating 90 years.
It's quite a responsibility to make sure that we are accessible to all, that we really celebrate 90 years of musical history.
We're spotlighting the Vermont Symphony Orchestra as they mark a milestone anniversary, as they hope to draw new audience members to their shows by wowing them with their wide range of repertoire. Good morning, I'm Liz Streppa, and this is NBC5 In Depth. Vermont lawmakers made major decisions during last week's veto session where they were attempting to override bills that Governor Scott pulled out the red pen for. Some of them include the session's Act 250 and housing bill, along with the yield bill, which sets property tax rates across the state. One that was overridden was the annual yield bill, which sets property tax rates statewide. In its final form, Vermonters will face an average 13.8% increase in their property taxes, despite the governor providing some last-minute suggestions that would have lowered the increase to 4 to 6%. But lawmakers called it fiscally irresponsible. The bill also creates study groups to take a look at how education is funded, which is the main reason for the tax increase. Another bill that was overridden is lawmakers' Act 250 and housing bill. The Scott administration has called it more anti-housing, and he says more needs to be done to ease zoning restrictions, among other ideas. But supporters of the bill say it strikes a balance of pro-housing and pro-development.
This bill is heavily focused on conservation and actually expands Act 250 regulation, which will be detrimental to rural communities long into the future.
It expands fourfold the amount of area that you can build in smart, we took smart growth centers, made them 4 times their size, and say you can build housing in those areas without Act 250.
Scott's veto on the renewable energy standard was also overridden, which requires most electric providers to be on complete renewable energy by the year 2030 and GlobalFoundries and municipal providers by the year 2035. Scott has concerns on the affordability aspects that it may have on ratepayers and Vermonters. Governor Phil Scott isn't mincing words about how he feels about these overrides. NBC5's Stephen Biddix caught up with him and also has reaction from top Democrats.
I feel obligated to be the voice of Vermonters, and I'm sorry that it was not enough this year.
After a contentious veto session where 6 bills were overridden, one of those increasing property taxes 13.8%, down from a projected 20.5% at one point, the governor sounded out on Tuesday.
That's like raising the costs of a loaf of bread by 60% and then having a 20% off bake sale.
But Speaker of the House Joel Krawinski said it's a tough feat for anyone to accomplish in only a matter of months, adding the governor's suggestions to dig into state reserves or pull back on universal school meals were non-starters.
I think we did a lot of good work to help reduce that pressure by nearly $100 million back into there and to help reduce those pressures.
Scott's also concerned that rural communities are going to get left behind with the exemptions and Act 250 rules in the session's housing and land use bill.
If you're living somewhere in the Northeast Kingdom or somewhere in the middle part of the state where there isn't that much population, this is going to make their economies worse.
And with lawmakers clearing the way for an overdose prevention site to open in Burlington, their mayor is ready to start the process to get it up and running.
Within a year, I hope as soon as possible. But again, we are the first pilot, so I want to make sure we do this right, that we don't rush things or cut corners, that we have the supports needed to make sure this is successful.
That was Stephen Biddix reporting, and we're preparing for a big week of politics in New York with the New York primary set for Tuesday, June 25th. We caught up with 5 of the 6 candidates on the Clinton County Democratic primary ballot. There are no candidates on the Republican ballot. We asked every candidate on the primary ballot the same 3 questions so you can compare answers and be better informed as you prepare to cast your ballot. Question 1. If elected, what will you do on day 1? Let's start with the Plattsburgh mayoral candidates, Wendell Hughes and Dan Lennon.
Day 1 would be going through everything. I mean, a complete inventory of everything. I think a lot of the information I would have at that point that I would be searching for, where we're at with certain projects in the city, you know, some of the top projects, and where we're at with, well, the Prime project and the hotel, you know, and a lot of the different major projects that we've been looking at. And so where are we at? And I think, you know, Chris has promised that he would have a better transition than he got from the previous administration.
What the financial status of the city is, and what projects are in place, and what projects we can start working on to make the city better. So sitting down with City Chamberlain's first priority on day 1, and then also meeting with department heads and laying groundwork for what your campaign is about, or excuse me, what your tenure is about, and what you are going to do for the city of Plattsburgh, and making sure that we are listening to the citizens' concerns and how we can do that better, how we can better serve the public.
And the Ward 3 council candidates, Elizabeth Gibbs and Christopher Rosenquist.
So on day 1, I would love to have a meeting and some group collaboration with new mayor, because no matter what, doesn't matter who wins, we're going to have a brand new mayor. And I would like to have a meeting to talk about what are council priorities, what are the mayor's priorities, what are things that we think need attention, how will we prioritize those things, and then set some work in motion on how to get those things done as a whole council.
You know, look, a lot of the work that we've been doing already, promoting the parks, ensuring that parks get the proper funding and the proper improvements, infrastructure improvements, continuing to support that, continue to advocate for these things. Obviously the role of a councilor is much different than the role of the mayor, but still at the same time, there's a lot of work that we've been doing and a lot of work that we'll continue to do.
Ward 6 council candidate Jeff Moore.
Balancing, the difference between affordability and livability. We want to make sure that we have enough money to do the things we want to do, but knowing that we can't go beyond what we have. Especially right now, it's going to be a difficult task. We have many things that we have to pay for now. We have $20 million worth of wastewater or water projects that need to be done. We've run up a fair amount of debt. It's going to take an experienced council to bring everything back in line.
Question 2. What type of development, if any, would you like to see along the waterfront?
The hotel, from what I understand, isn't completely lost mission at this point. I mean, we could still bring the hotel back. I mean, to sit down with the council and come to maybe a compromise with the council to get the hotel off the ground. And we've just done, they just did a huge feasibility study down there. And the feasibility study has a lot of recommendations in it. And it's going through that and figuring out what the city of Plattsburgh can afford to do if the hotel, in fact, doesn't come.
The hotel development on the harbor side, a great benefit to the city. My conversations with the development group and with the city chamberlain have been that this is a beneficial development to the city of Plattsburgh, not only because it would be giving us the first hotel in the city of Plattsburgh, it would be the first full-service hotel in the entire county. It would have convention centers, it would be able to host many events, which is something that we desperately needed in Clinton County as a whole, but also in the city of Plattsburgh.
I know other cities that have lakes do entire harborside festivals, lakefront. I think that there are so many things that could be done there, and we haven't spent any time really exploring how we can make that attractive and fun and a usable space without having to sell it to a developer. Because if it were really an attractive piece of property for a hotel, I really believe a hotel would be there by now.
Study after study has shown like that is the best use of that property. A hotel development or some type of conference center or of that nature would be the best use for that property, and to continue to advocate for that. That's something that I would like to see. Downtown Plattsburgh could definitely benefit from a hotel in that area. And still, again, something that I continue to advocate for and continue to push for because it's the right thing to do for the city of Plattsburgh and for downtown.
Pretty much open to any kind of development that may occur. We were not able to answer check all the boxes on the Skyward proposal. They never got back to us to renegotiate or even speak about the terms. So not real confident that they're going to come through, but I would hope that something would come along that would be meaningful.
Final question. What's a fun or surprising fact that voters may not know about you?
I have a great wife, and I got 2 rescue dogs that I love to death. And, I mean, we live in the city of Plattsburgh. I've lived in the city of Plattsburgh my whole life. So I love the city of Plattsburgh.
I ran that through high school. I ran track and field there. I was a state and national champion. I went to Syracuse University on an athletic scholarship, where my team actually won the national championship. When I first entered the program, we were 15th in the nation, and we had a good group of people, a good team. And, we had differences here in Pitt, but we all had the same common goal, which was to win the national championship.
I listen to all kinds of music, but I love heavy metal. My whole family does. We just actually went to see Judas Priest perform at the MVP Arena. That was the boys' Christmas present from me. We're going to be in Albany again in the fall to see Megadeth perform at MVP Arena. And I mean, I think my boys are more hardcore heavy metal than I am, but I'm a huge heavy metal fan. I love it.
I have an art studio. I've got a little art studio at home. I've sewn costumes and clothing for years. I've got a little bit of an artistic bug that I've got. And I also do a lot of hands-on work. I remodel bathrooms for friends, and, I'm about to start my own, and it's something that I like to do. It's more that creative side that I enjoy doing. And yeah, I love doing it. I have a lot of fun doing it.
When I first moved back to the city, there was a lot of music downtown, people playing guitar, somebody singing. I really like that vibe, and I would really like to see that come back.
The polls open at 7 a.m. on Tuesday. And NBC5 News reached out to Ward 6 Council candidate Amy Collin multiple times to ask if she wanted to participate in this segment. She has not returned our request for comment. Still to come on NBC5 In Depth, celebrating 9 decades of musical excellence.
We were founded from a group of people who were stone cutters, a state's attorney, barbers, teachers, all walks of life.
We are recognizing the accomplishments of the Vermont Symphony Orchestra as they kick off their 90th season. Don't go away. Welcome back. This year, the Vermont Symphony Orchestra is celebrating a milestone anniversary. To mark the occasion, the VSO is taking the show on the road and introducing a bunch of new repertoire that they say provides something for everyone. We take a look back at the beloved orchestra's past, present, and future, which looks really bright. The sweet sounds of the symphony.
the Vermont Symphony was really the first group that I auditioned for and won a seat with when I returned back here in 1989. So it's been the major musical organization in my life since then, and continues to be.
Music has been a constant for the Vermont Symphony Orchestra's principal cellist, John Dunlop, but being a part of an orchestra as rich in history as the VSO has been life-changing for him.
Vermont Symphony has a real mission. Part of its mission, at least, is to travel to all the corners of the state and play for communities that might be a little bit underserved in terms of a large classical ensemble. And that I've found is a fairly unique kind of a part of the mission for an orchestra, I think of our quality and size. But yeah, so that whole idea of kind of reaching out to the whole state, I just have found very special.
He's not the only one who finds it special. Audiences across the Green Mountain State and across the world have been able to enjoy the repertoire performed by this ensemble for 90 years, and a lot has happened in that time.
COVID was very difficult because we were doing so many things remotely. I mean, it was difficult for everyone, I know. And we did really try. Our executive director, Elise, she really pushed hard to get a lot of as much remote kinds of performances out to our audiences as possible. But like anybody's interactions during COVID that were remote, it just isn't the same. So it's been great these last couple of years to get back out there again.
And now they're back performing in person for their 90th season, a big milestone that VSO's executive director Elise Brunel is thrilled to be celebrating.
Humbled and honored. It's quite a responsibility to make sure that we are accessible to all, that we really celebrate 90 years of musical history, but also focus a lot on today's talent. Focus on living artists now. And so it's a fantastic balance that our music director now, Andrew Crust, he's the VSO's 5th music director, that he and I work together to make sure the music is exciting, challenging, accessible, and that we all get in those cars and drive all over the state this year. Everything from a living room in Woodstock to the big summer festival tour, Sound of Music, a huge variety of music this year. We're excited and we're thrilled to do it.
She's excited to not only watch the orchestra do what they do best, perform, but to introduce people from all walks of life to music, and to remind people that the performers on stage are your friends and your neighbors.
The Vermont Symphony Orchestra is Vermont's professional statewide year-long orchestra, but we were founded from a group of people who were stone cutters, a state's attorney, barbers, teachers, all walks of life, who were musicians on the side. And over the course of many decades now, we've evolved into a professional orchestra. And now we have 40 concerts around the state throughout the year and a very robust statewide education program for music education, both for young and adult Vermonters.
Education is a big part of the VSO's mission, bringing music to classrooms, museums, and venues all across the state by literally taking the show on the road.
Well, I look at the map and think, yep, we're going from Derby Line down to Brattleboro next year. So there's a lot of driving over the mountains, along the lakes. We go everywhere. That's something we've always done and continue to do. Another thing that's very unique to us is making sure we reach out into schools and work hand in hand with teachers and students, teaching them everything from how to write music for woodwind instruments to joining us on stage at our major concerts in Burlington and Rutland and elsewhere. We also commission Vermont composers, and this coming season we are premiering, or at least showcasing, the music by quite a handful of Vermont composers because we're rich with musical talent.
I mean, we know that there are music lovers, classical music lovers of all kind everywhere in Vermont. And so to be able to bring that music to them, whether it's, in Rutland at the Paramount, or we played at the Latches Theater down in Brattleboro, all the way up into northern parts of the state for different groups. I mean, and talking with people in the audience after some of those shows, I think really drives home the point that bringing that music to them is important to the communities, and it's important to us as well.
The talent on stage, which typically sits at about 54 musicians, is made up of Vermonters from all demographics and from a variety of zip codes.
We have so many people who drive long distance to come and be together. This is an orchestra that's a true family. People really enjoy the family atmosphere of both rehearsing and performing, but also for our hosts. We have families that host musicians. We have people who have brought their children and grandchildren year after year to VSO concerts. So to me, I think the legacy is that VSO is a professional orchestra that sounds fantastic, but it is a real warm, engaging family experience, both people on stage as well as everyone.
And audiences can count on being entertained with a variety of performances for the 90th season, thanks in part to the group's new music director, Andrew Crust. This will be his second season leading the VSO. He told us last year that one of his goals was to make orchestra music less intimidating and more accessible to audiences, a goal that musicians like Dunlop say he's achieved.
We're really excited that we have our new musical director in Andrew Crust, and he's young and he's got lots of ideas and great connections with terrific soloists who we're bringing in. Next season, we'll be playing with Bela Fleck, who's a terrific, folk and classical banjo player. So it's just exciting to be continuing this legacy of an orchestra that's held on through a lot of ups and downs, and to be part of that, to continue to be part of that after almost 30 years now, is very exciting.
The VSO just wrapped up its sold-out Sound of Music tour in partnership with Lyric Theater and the Flynn at the Trapp Family Lodge in Stowe. But now their sights are set on their July 4th tour.
We'll be on our summer festival tour, visiting 6 communities in Vermont in the first week of July. So that's something that I think a lot of people love. Very family friendly, great outdoors experiences to start our 90th season. I think people should make sure they check out where we're going to be in their neck of the woods this year at vso.org. Again, everything from White River Junction, Derby Line, Bennington, Brattleboro, everywhere in between. And if you haven't been to a VSO concert, just try one, and you'll see why people get pretty addicted to the music and get to learn and meet the musicians, because that's at the core of what we do, are these fantastic musicians who are so good at performing, but they have a lot of fun too.
Fun is in the orchestra's DNA.
My favorite part, I suppose I'd have to say, just the community of musicians and audience members too, regular audience members. It's such a strong community. We're all friends. We get to know a lot of people who come up here from New York City and Boston and come down from Montreal. They're friends as well, and we get to see them 3 or 4 times a year. But yeah, just a musical community is really valuable.
And by the sounds of it, the Vermont Symphony Orchestra continues to be a valuable asset here in the Green Mountain State, 90 years and counting, starting another milestone season on the right note.
Still ahead, taking a bite out of an invasive species, the new approach being tested in parts of Vermont. That's next. An invasive species called Japanese knotweed is taking over some Vermont communities, and it's causing some serious disruption to the state's delicate ecosystems. Conservation committees are trying out a new strategy to get rid of this knotweed using a method that might surprise you. 48 goats have been released on roughly 6 acres in the Mad River Valley, chomping down the knotweed for a few days at a time before being moved to a different location on that property. The goats arrived on Memorial Day weekend, and officials say they have been a big help.
It's amazing what they've accomplished. They're working at it full time. We work a few hours a week, right?
Those goats will continue their work in the valley until October, when they will return back to their farm in Enosburg Falls. If this continues to be successful, the goats will likely help in other parts of the state where invasive plants continue to grow. Well, that is all the time we have for you this morning. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your weekend.